Good morning, everybody. Today we are here to discuss everything about Title I Part D. This is our new Title I Part D, Subpart 1, new coordinators orientation meeting. My name, again, is Monica Higgins, and I also work with the Title I Part A as well as the Title I Part D federal programs. And I've been working with the Kentucky Department of Education for over 11 years now. Before we get started, I would like to have everybody to turn their camera on so that way you can kind of introduce yourself to me. If you could tell me your name, your district, and the last item that you purchased through Amazon, and I will go first. So my name is Monica Higgins, and I work for the Kentucky Department of Education. And the last item that I recently purchased through Amazon was a detangler hairbrush. I'm excited about that. All right, so I'm gonna play popcorn and pass it over to Jamie.
Hi, Jamie Keene with Clark County Public Schools. And let's see, I think a television wall mount bracket was the last thing I've got from Amazon.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Jamie. Popcorn it to someone else, Jamie.
Oh, yeah, I forgot that part. I will popcorn over to Stephen.
Hey guys, I am Stephen McGee. I am at Todd County Day Treatment. And last thing I bought on Amazon, I believe, was a football mouthpiece for my son.
That's awesome, Stephen. Thank you.
So I'm going to pass it over to Michael G.
Okay, my name is Michael Gregg. I work with Pulaski County Day Treatment Eagle Academy. And the last thing I bought on Amazon was a brush for my swimming pool to brush the pool walls.
Oh, that sounds great. Awesome. Thank you so much, Michael. Pass it over to someone else.
Let's see. I'm going to pass it to Dominic.
All right. Good morning. I'm Principal of Specialized Programs, which includes Bullitt County Alternative Center. The last thing I bought on Amazon, I had to check because I wasn't sure, was pedals for a mountain bike. They have these spike things in them for better grip.
Oh, that's awesome. So you're a mountain person.
Yeah, I race mountain bikes. It's a good stress killer.
Sounds like a great hobby.
I love it.
All right.
I'll popcorn to Shannon J.
Hello, I'm Shannon Jett. I am the DJJ Education Branch Manager. And the last thing I bought on Amazon was a blender for smoothies. And not because I didn't have a blender for smoothies, but my teenage boys have decided they also like smoothies and I needed more containers and it was cheaper just to buy a whole new unit. So that's fine because we love our smoothies.
Seems like I need to come over to your house and have a smoothie, Shannon.
I have like a whole section of my freezer with fruit and all kinds of stuff in there.
Sounds awesome.
Popcorn to Karen.
Hello, my name's Karen Million. I work for the Kentucky Department of Corrections. I'm out of Central Office Education, and I am new to Title I, just learning my way around. So I look forward to this meeting this morning. The last thing I bought on Amazon was a new desk chair for my home office.
Oh, that sounds awesome. All right, pass it to someone else, Karen.
Lachina?
You said that exactly right, Karen. Thank you so
thank you.
much. Yes, nice to meet you.
Nice
So
to meet
I'm
you.
Lachina Carruthers. Hello. And I am the Title I State Agency Director at DJJ to work with the Title I Part D Subpart 1 programs. And the last thing I bought, I did not want to say it, but I will tell you, it is a seasoning with turmeric, ginger, and garlic for my fish that I eat every morning.
That sounds great.
It's an Indian thing. I ate a lot of it when I was in Colombia, and they don't sell it here in America, so I had to find something that was similar. So that's what I found.
Well, thank you so much. That sounds awesome.
It
And
takes away the guilt of eating fried fish in the morning.
I'm sure it does. All right. So, Latina
David-
popcorn. Okay.
I think David, are you next? David?
If you popcorn to me,
Yes.
David Frazier, I work at Woods Bend Youth Development Center here in Morgan County. And the last thing I purchased was a new key ignition for our pontoon. We were on the lake the other day and the boat decided not to run. And we come to find out there was a short in the ignition. So now we've got that up and running. Hopefully we'll get back on the lake this weekend.
That sounds awesome. I know you guys are having so much fun going to the lake. All right. I believe everyone has had the opportunity to tell me a little bit about themselves. So if you could just turn your cameras off, I think that would help with the broadband. It was great to see everybody, and we'll go ahead and get started. And I'm going to turn my camera off as well to help with the broadband, but I'm going to start by sharing my presentation. Okay, so the first thing you want to do, if you're just very unfamiliar with what Title I Part D is, you want to make sure just to go to the Kentucky Department of Education website. And in the search engine on the right side, the first thing you want to do is just type in the Title I Part D program. When you first get there, you have some related resources on the right-hand side. So we have our Title I Part D handbook, as well as some Title I Part D sample documents, frequently asked questions, and the Title I Part D overview, as well as a needs assessment template. And we also have related web pages. So we have the U.S. Department of Education's web page, also just other different helpful web pages that may help to assist you. Also, every year, well, not every year, but every possible quarterly, we conduct N&D newsletters. So we conduct them 4 times a year, and they're conducted in the fall, winter, and spring. And these newsletters are very important because it just gives you hot topics of things that might be interested to you to help assist you. And we always post our newsletters on the KDE webpage. But for today, I'm going to start with the Title I Part D overview. So I guess everyone is assuming, what is Title I Part D and how does it relate to my job duties? And today we're going to discuss that more in depth. So here are the learning targets. Today, I hope that you will be able to complete your child count survey with accuracy, identify your educational facility needs, and develop and complete your Title I Part D application with accuracy, as well as complete your performance report with accuracy. So regarding the Title I Part D program, you have 3 specific tasks. You have your application, which behind the scenes, we're working on uploading those allocation amounts. They're not ready for everyone yet, but we're working behind the scenes with our KDE finance team to get all of that information uploaded within the grant management application system. The performance report is open, and on Monday, if you were able to attend, we did have a webinar regarding the performance report and the upcoming changes. And the performance report information is due September 8th, 2023. And a little bit later within this year, we will have the child count survey available. And that's normally conducted around the end of November and December for you to complete that. So what is Title I Part D? Title I Part D is regarding neglected and delinquent students. The term neglected means in respect to a student who has been committed to an institution other than a foster care home or has been voluntarily placed due to abandonment, neglect, or death of his or her parents or guardians. And this is found in section 1432 of our statute, and I'll show you our statute a little bit later. The term delinquent means a student who resides in a public or private residential facility other than a foster home that operates under the care of youth that have been adjudicated or delinquent or court order or in need of supervision. We also may have some at-risk students. Now, the term at-risk might have all of these indicators which are listed below. It could be a student that has a drug and alcohol problem, a student that is pregnant or is a parent, is a gang member, has dropped out of school in the past, has high absenteeism rate in school. So all of these criteria right here may classify under at-risk student. So what are the goals of Title I Part D? The goals are to improve educational services for children, provide youth with a successful transition to further school or employment, as well as prevent youth from dropping out of school, and provide youth who have dropped out with a system to reinsure their education. So a lot of times, you may hear me say Title I Part D Subpart 1, or you may hear me say Title I Part D Subpart 2. And my colleague, Wes Blake, mostly works with the Subpart 2 programs. And I mostly work with the Subpart 1 programs. So just to differentiate between the two programs, you have an adult corrections. And Karen, I'm so glad that you are on the call with us today. You have Department of Corrections, which could be a state penitentiary or a correctional complex. And then you might, on the other hand, have a juvenile corrections facility in conjunction with the with the Department of Juvenile Justice, which you may have a day treatment program or a treatment center or a youth development center. It just ranges between the differences in the program. Now, here is a little synopsis of what the Title I Part D Subpart 2 programs are. And again, my colleague Wes Blake mostly works with the local education agencies for Subpart 2. So you may have neglected programs, which are children homes and academies. You may have delinquent programs, again, which are youth development centers, juvenile detention centers, and maybe some group homes. Now, a lot of times between Subpart 1 and Subpart 2, there could be some overlap, but the difference between the two is the local education agency has more collaboration as far as the funding sources and the funding stream goes directly to the LEA. Now with Subpart 1, the funding stream goes directly to the state agency, which is DJJ or DOC. And again, you may have some conjunction of at-risk programs. Are there any questions? And let me stop sharing and also check the chat function to see if there are any questions. And feel free to come off mute if you have any questions.
I didn't see any questions so far, Monica.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Latina. We're going to just keep moving forward. So again, this is a part of your major task that you have to complete for the program. So what is the annual child count? The annual child count is an annual survey that is collected for the number of students who are eligible for Title I Part D funds in each state. Now, there is a difference between eligibility for counting and eligibility for serving. So, the state agency eligibility is it has to be under the assistance of a subpart, which is maybe a state agency responsible for providing the free and public education, an institution for neglected and delinquent children, attending a community day program for neglected and delinquent children, or part of an adult correctional institution. Now, if you have a subpart 2,
Monica,
uh-huh.
whenever you came off and now you're back to the presentation, you need to share that with us again.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, so let me reiterate one more time. So you have the annual child count. And guys, please feel free to stop me at any point if you can't see my screen. Thank you, guys. So this is the annual child count survey, and it collects an estimate number of students who are eligible to receive Title I Part D funds in each state. And again, the criteria for eligibility for counting is different for the eligibility for serving. There's two different things, but we'll talk about that a little bit further. So for Subpart 1, it is in conjunction with the state agency who is responsible for providing the free and public education. And a lot of times this may be an institution for neglected or delinquent and children of youth. It could be a student attending a community day program for neglected or delinquent children, or the student could be in an adult correctional institution. Now, for Subpart 2, this is more collaboration with the local education agency. And again, it must serve students who live and reside in a residential facility, who meet the criteria of neglected or delinquent youth, and is located within its boundaries. So what is the annual child count? So for Subpart 1, you have the institution eligibility, institutions that serve children who are neglected and delinquent and who have an average length of stay for 30 days. That's why completing your performance report data, when you're completing your performance report data, towards the bottom of under that demographic data page, it pre-populates the averages under average length of stay. And for you to be eligible under DJJ to receive DJJ funding for Subpart 1, your average length of stay must be at least 30 days. Also, the student eligibility criteria for Subpart 1 is that they must be a juvenile, be a part of an adult correctional facility or a community day program, aged 20 years or younger, are enrolled in a regular program of instruction for at least 15 hours a week. So they must receive at least 15 hours a week at a DJJ program. Or it differentiates between 15 to 20 hours per week. So more like, let me reiterate, more like 20 hours per week in a juvenile facility and 15 hours a week in an adult correctional program. Now for Subpart 2, there are some differentiations between the two. So again, their count is only a 30-day count, whereas Subpart 1 is a 1-day count, and Subpart 2 is a 30-day count. The students have to be aged between 5 to 17, upon re-entry of the facility. Okay, and we're going to go right along. So the count window. And again, the state agency directors, which in this case would be Lachina Carruthers, as well as Shannon, they both work together to pick a day that has the highest enrollment. And normally that is a 1 day during the current calendar year. And everyone within this institution uses the same day. A lot of times in the past, Lachina and Shannon have used the date of December 1st. But it doesn't necessarily have to be December 1st. The state agency directors will choose the date to have the highest enrollment. And again, this is just a calculation of what GMAP will do, specifically when you have to complete your child count information within the GMAP system. It's just a calculation and a formula. So that way, when we submit this information to the U.S. Department of Education, they will be able to see how we went about our funding stream. So the annual child count is all about how you receive your funding. I'm not specifically going to go into specific details for Subpart 2 because I don't want to confuse you guys, and my colleague Wes Blake mostly talks about that. And so what is a regular program of instruction? A regular program of instruction is an educational program not beyond grade 12 in an institution or a community day program for children who are neglected and delinquent that consists of classroom instruction in basic school subjects such as reading and math and vocational oriented subjects. So who can be served? And again, looking at only Subpart 1, you have to be a part of a state agency, either DJJ or DOC. The students must be aged 21 or younger and are enrolled in a regular program of instruction, as well as meet the average length of stay requirement of at least having that 30 days. 30 days are given for the program type. And we kind of discussed this on Monday. So what is the performance report? The performance report, before I go into the performance report, are there any questions regarding the annual child count? And I'm gonna just check the chat function just to make sure there's not any questions coming in.
None so far.
Okay. So what is the performance report? And on Monday, we did have a discussion regarding the performance report and all of the new changes regarding the performance report. So the purpose of the performance report is to collect program data that the U.S. Department of Education can use to determine the effectiveness of the Title I Part D program. So within the performance report, you are collecting and focusing on certain main areas. Those main areas include student and facility counts, demographic data such as race, ethnicity, age, and gender, academic and vocational outcomes, academic performance report outcomes for reading and math. So what is the performance report? The performance report requests data from the previous year, which is typically defined as July 1st through June 30th. This year, the collection is for July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. For example, the data that you enter in the CSPR in January, we have to submit some reports to the U.S. Department of Education. So the CSPR part is mostly for Wes and I, and we submit our data files to the U.S. Department of Education by January. And then after they review it in January and February, they may ask us for, if they find discrepancy in the data, they may ask for us to submit a response to them. The Part D data can be used by administrators, teachers, and others in a number of ways, including how to review and improve the quality of the data itself, to conduct a needs assessment and evaluate programs, and share this information with students, parents, and any other stakeholders in the community. So when you are completing your performance report, it is very important that the data and the numbers that you put within the performance report are accurate. And again, the data for the performance report is important because it is shared publicly. And you also want to make sure that it is accurate. Are there any questions regarding the performance report before I move on? Let me check the chat.
None so far.
Okay. So why plan my funding? It is important to have a plan when you are working with the Title I Part D program. It is important to have a plan in mind for as to how you want to use your Title I Part D funds, because it helps to ensure future federal program funding. You also make sure to meet federal, state, and local requirements. And it also helps you to be more efficient because a lot of times you have to do more with less, especially in the time of financial struggle. And we have been through a lot of financial struggle just from the pandemic. So where do I start? The best place to start when it comes to Title I Part D is really using that needs assessment template. The needs assessment template is so important because it helps you to identify desired data, availability, and usage and collection of methods. It also helps you to analyze your data. So a lot of times when I read the needs assessment documentation, the facilities may say that the overall need is to improve reading and math scores within their facility. So just in a nutshell, completing your needs assessment, looking at that needs assessment is so important. And you want to make sure that you are identifying your needs of the neglected and delinquent students. The focus for Title I Part D is how you are going to help those students to transition to post-college and career readiness. Again, when compiling your needs assessment, what data factors are you using to identify those needs? So, for example, it could be your performance report data. It could be iReady tests and STAR reading tests. It could be Renaissance tests. And how often are those needs assessments re-evaluated? Are they re-evaluated 3 times a year? Is that before, during, or at the end of the school year? And overall, you have to look at your needs assessment to see what should I focus on moving forward? Where are we now? Where do we need to be? And how can we get there? And while I'm talking about the needs assessment, I kind of want to pull it up. So what I'm currently showing right now is our Google Classroom. And if you don't have access to our Google Classroom, please let me know, because this is where a lot of times I might not upload it on our KDE website, but I will certainly upload all of our resources to the Google Classroom. So looking within the Google Classroom, we have certain areas of resources. So we have related resources, we have financial resources, we have application resources, and then we also have performance report resources, child count, monitoring, new coordinators training materials. And then if you have a closure within your facility, we have certain forms. We have our risk assessment template there. We have eligibility forms. So use this Google Classroom to help you to better understand the Title I Part D program. But in this sense, we're going to look at the needs assessment document because I'm talking about the needs assessment. So this needs assessment document, it's very in depth, but you don't have to go in and answer all the questions within this needs assessment document. We mostly just focus on the last section of the needs assessment document. And this is on page 10, where we kind of have you to think outside the box and look at current outcomes of how things are, your desired outcomes, your needs and gaps, and how do you go about prioritizing and ranking, and then come up with some solutions and how you are going to evaluate the items to know if what you put in your needs assessment is working for you and what areas you need to improve on. Okay, we're going to go back to the overview. So again, this chart is just the chart on page 10 from the needs assessment. The next thing we're going to talk about is what is the application and program plan. So the application is within GMAP, and I can show you that. The plan is used for meeting the educational needs of children and assisting and helping to assist children with the transitional services from correctional facilities to locally operated programs. What is the application and program plan? Each facility should describe the program goals, have measurable objectives within their application. And this is very important because a lot of times when people are completing their application, you might want to take a picture or screenshot this particular page, because a lot of times Lachina and Amber and Karen and Shannon may receive questions about how can we use our Title I Part D funds. You want to make sure to look at the column that which is allowable. So tutoring is allowable. Having a liaison coordinator salary is allowable. Classroom assistant, supplemental. And you want to pay close attention to that term supplemental. So because within our statute, it specifically states that everything under Title I Part D, Subpart 1 must be supplemental. So when I say supplemental, that does not mean that it is a brand new purchase, but it has been supplemented. It could have been supplemented using another program. So the rule of thumb that I normally say is with Title I Part D funds, use Title I Part D funds, use local, state other funds first, and then you can supplement any purchases using Title I Part D last. And again, a allowable purchase could be supplemental professional development, counseling and mentoring services, dropout prevention services, vocational, technical, life skills, and educational services. All of those items are supplemental. Now, things that are not allowable, maybe gift cards, because they're hard to prove. And a lot of times gift cards are not educational. But items that would not be allowable would be neglected, delinquent, or at risk. Items that are not catered to the students. Anything that would not be directly related to education or transition. Are there any questions before I move to the GMAP application?
There were a couple of questions, but those were things that I could answer for them, Monica, and respond to. Other than that, I think we're good. Oh, do you have in your files, do you already have so because the child count date is chosen by us on our end, we really don't have an advance date on that one. And sometimes the GMAP application, just like right now, it's not available. So that date would change. So I was trying to explain that, I think that was Mr. Frazier, yeah, that because some of those dates, they do change a little bit on and off each year, that list does change. I have a tentative list that I can send out to you guys, but that does, it's not always the same every year, but it's close. So other than that, Monica, we are good.
Okay, sounds good. And thank you for bringing that point up, Lachina, because the dates do often change. A lot of times, just being completely honest, we have to wait for our finance team here at the Kentucky Department of Education to insert in the allocations and get GMAP ready for us. So there is kind of a delay, but we really do try to abide by all timeline dates.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So looking at the grant management and application planning system, we're going to go to the application from last year, just because the 2024 application, the current year application is not ready. So we're going to look at last year's application. And we're going to go under Title I Part D, the state agency application. And I'm just going to pull up Adair Youth Development Center since they are first. And again, when you first get on this page, the first thing you want to do is under the sections page. It is very important when you are starting to complete your fiscal year 2024 application to make sure to change the status to started, because it will not allow you to insert any data or any information in until you change that status to started when the application does open for fiscal year 24. Again, the history log is still the same. This is where we can communicate back and forth. You can add in a comment to me. And then it also lists the allocation amount that each facility will receive for Title I Part D. You have the opportunity to add in your contact information. Say, for example, if I have a quick question or if there is anything that I need to call you directly, just make sure to add in your contact information right here within the system. Now, under here, the Title I Part D individual institutions, this is the section where you start completing your GMAP application. So you have program details, and this is more like an introduction page. Underneath here, we have our state plan requirements that we have to fulfill. We have program guidance. It's a program guidance link. And this is more of the introduction page. So please just read this information very carefully. But in this sense, we're going to use the Go To button and go to the next page. You also have your program details instruction page. And the first type of questions are regarding your facility for the educational needs. And then you have your implementation and evaluation section. You have the next section where you're going to address professional development, transitional services, parental assistance. Now, we also understand that a lot of times parental assistance may be limited just due to the population of the students or the population from the facility. You're going to discuss community engagement. You're also going to complete the use of funds chart, and you're going to add all this information in. And a lot of times when I am reviewing the application within the GMAP system, sometimes personnel forget to complete the name of the person responsible for transition services. So you also want to make sure to include, it's all the way a lot of times over, and a lot of times people forget to include that, but you want to make sure to include the name of the person responsible for transitional services. And then you have the opportunity to add in any additional comments. Question 13 talks about the use of technology at the facility. And then question 14 talks about describe how programs will be coordinated with any other federal programs, or if you have a dropout prevention program. Are there any questions regarding the application before I go to the next page? All right. Hearing none, I'm going to move right
Yeah,
along
none
to the
so
next
far.
page. Okay. This is the assurance page. And these are particularly just assurances where you need to certify that the information that you have written is accurate and completed to the best of your knowledge and ability. You don't necessarily have to do anything particularly on this page, but just click the box. And again, we have discussed the needs assessment. So when you complete your needs assessment, you're going to upload it under the related documents section. It goes here. And then you have to upload your interagency agreement. And Lachina, Shannon, Karen, and Amber can help you with your interagency agreement. A lot of times, Karen, if you are a part of a DLC institution, I think you don't necessarily have to complete an interagency agreement, but if you are a part of DJJ, you do have to complete an interagency agreement. And you also have the opportunity to upload any other documents or files that may help your case when writing your application. But it's optional to upload any other files that you may want personnel to see. Are there any questions under the related documents and how to go about that? And again, you have, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Monica, and no one asked a question about the related documents, but that's something to pay close attention to as well, because for our programs, the interagency agreement has to be uploaded in order for the application to be approved, and the needs assessment. So those exact two documents, everyone, those two must be included in order for when you submit it, in order for me to approve it, to send it on to her at KDE.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, if you need any assistance with that, I'll be available.
Thank you so much, Lachina, for adding that comment in. I appreciate it because they are required for DJJ. Thank you. We're going to move right along to the next page. This is the budget section. So you're going to have your total allocation up here, and then you're going to just complete your budget. And it is very important when you are completing your budget to be specific as much as possible. Say, for example, if you are using funds for a classified or a certified position, make sure to include the full-time equivalency percentages. How long or what is the percentage that that person or personnel is working with the Title I Part D program? A lot of times if you are using fringe benefits, include the percentages. It doesn't necessarily have to include the percentages for the fringe benefits, but if you would like to, that is okay. And I just want to reiterate, when completing your narrative descriptions, please be specific. A lot of times I return them just because they're not specific enough. Now, I wanted to point out that the checklist is more like a rubric, and this is where if I have any concerns regarding your application, this is where I am going to insert my comments within the checklist. This is not for you to complete. This is mostly for me to complete and provide feedback and suggestions to help your application. Are there any questions again before I move to the Title I Part D statute? Okay, so the first thing you want to do is you want to pay close attention to the Title I Part D statute, because the Title I Part D statute, it has a lot of important factors within here. So it talks about the eligibility of what we discussed today, the allocation of funds when we had a discussion regarding child count, reallocation of funds, the state plan that is also embedded within our application and the state agency applications, the use of funds. It also talks about institutional-wide projects, 3-year program or projects, transitional services. So when you have free time, which I know may be rare, you might want to just read the Title I Part D statute because it is very helpful. And we also have our non-regulatory guidance. The non-regulatory guidance, within it, it tells you, yes, you can do this. No, you cannot do this. This is such an important document. And just make sure to read the non-regulatory guidance if you have some free time as well. So again, it will say, no, you can't do this within the Title I Part D program. Yes, you can do this, and it'll state the reasons why. So a lot of times when people ask me questions, I am always researching the non-regulatory guidance to see if it is allowable or not allowable. And again, since everyone is new, I would recommend reading the Title I Part D handbook. The Title I Part D handbook, it is so important for our program. It tells you all of the ins and outs, all of the requirements. It even talks about time and effort for staff, the time and effort logs for staff, the monitoring process, the annual child count process, eligibility criteria for the annual child count, the needs assessment, performance report. Overall, the handbook is, say for example, it is such an important document when you're first getting started with the Title I Part D program. And also within here, we also have the timeline for submissions. and this is on our Google Classroom. So the timeline for submissions, a lot of times, like any timelines, any dates, I will insert it within the Google Classroom and put a reminder in there. So for example, our GMAP applications are not open yet. Normally they are due August 31st, but since they're not open, that date will be subject to change. The performance reports are due September 8th, and the child count, a lot of times, those are due in December, or Lachina and Shannon and Karen and Amber could change the date for it to be sooner than December, but it's based on the state agency's discretion. We also have some financial resources. We have our object code descriptions. So when you are completing your application and you may have a question to see if it is allowable or not allowable, you can use the expenditure object codes to make sure that you are categorizing those budget object codes correctly. And we just have the items highlighted in yellow. They're just helpful for you. And it is just a document to help you when you're completing your application. We also have our non-competitive funding matrix. And we'll see if it'll allow me to open the file. It did. Okay. All right. So our non-competitive funding matrix, it has, you have to find specifically the Title I Part D program. And this is all federal programs, so that's why this is pretty massive. But if you look under section G, not G, but F, G is for subpart 2 and F is for subpart 1, it will tell you when you are completing your application the codes that you can use and several codes that you cannot use. So there's yeses and nos. For those codes that show no, they are not acceptable for the Title I Part D program for the federal funding matrix. And again, we just have several resources under application, performance report. Since we recently had our Title I Part D performance report training, I included the concise guide for completing the performance report. I also included the video, and it was just posted yesterday. And then, so just make sure to certainly use the Google Classroom, because this is where you will see any new handouts, any new resources posted mostly to our Google Classroom. We also have our monitoring checklist forms available for DOC as well as DJJ and KDE requirements. We have our Pathways to Success training materials posted. And we also have new coordinators training materials posted. Are there any questions? Are there any questions at this point? I'm getting close to closing and concluding for the day. So let me know if you guys have any questions.
Okay. So far, none came in, but as they do, I will read them off.
Okay.
Monica, would you just say the best way to attack all of these things that we need is just to get on GMAP and start on page 1, work through, and it's just one thing, right? Does it come in order, or should I be look like the application, the first main thing I need to get completed? Is that correct? The very first thing I should be worried about?
So yes, that's a great question, Karen. So the first thing normally you would look at is your application. But since in this case, our KDE finance team is in the process of uploading the allocations and they are not available yet for fiscal year 24, I would change my focus to start actually looking at your performance report because it is open. But a lot of times around August and September, the focus is your application and your performance report. So between those two documents, normally I would say focus on your application, but since it's not ready, I can't tell you to do that. So I would say transition to focus on your performance report. And when the application is open, I will certainly notify everybody by email saying the application is open. Look at question 1. Start focusing on your needs. Look at your needs assessment. Focus on your interagency agreement when it is open. So right now, the focus should be your application and your performance report. That is a good question.
Thank you.
And again, everyone, when the application becomes available, I always notify you by email and work with you on those as well. There will not be a time that any of those pieces are due and you would not know it and have what you need. So you'll have it all. And the performance reports are starting to come in already. So as Monica said, go ahead and get that completed. And if you need some assistance, reach out to me.
Mm-hmm. And Dominic, you had a great question within the chat. Yes, to clarify, the performance report is always a year prior. So it's always kind of lacking a year behind just due to the data that we are collecting. So you are correct. The performance report is for fiscal year 23. And the application this year that everyone should be working on is for fiscal year 24. Great question, Dominic. Performance report is always behind a year. Well, it's not really behind, but the data that we are collecting is a little bit behind. Let's see. Stephen had a question. Since Todd County Day Treatment is brand new, how should I fill out? Can you come off mute, Stephen, and give me a little bit more details as to which form you're talking about?
Yeah, their program wouldn't be in the system either yet.
Okay. I know that Thelma Hawkins and I have been working behind the scenes where Todd County is a brand new program. We're trying to locate and start an organization number for you guys within the system. So Thelma was just mentioning that to me yesterday. And so I know she's working on that. So we possibly will be reaching out to you, Stephen, just so that way we can get that started. But good questions.
And those of you, I'm sorry, Monica.
No, I was just going to say, Stephen, we will have some further follow-up.
Another good practice is for those of you who already have, you're the new principal, the new program coordinator. You can go into your last year's application, like Monica pulled up the one from Adair from last year, and read through what that application looked like last year. Because 9 out of 10, your needs assessment was performed by the principal before you. And so now as you're looking at the program and the vision for the program, the needs of the program, definitely looking back at the last couple of years, GMAP applications will help you with that process and get you prepared to actually complete the new application when it comes open.
Exactly. That's an awesome point, Latina. That's one thing I would recommend looking at last year's application. Are there any other questions? I know we're right at 11 and I don't want to hold you guys any further. So I just want to say thank you guys for your attention today. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me, or if not me, please feel free to contact your state agency director.